This episode of App Judgment is brought to you by Ting.
Hey, and welcome to App Judgment, your source for mobile app news and reviews from Revision 3. And today we're joined by Tom McLeod of Crosswalk. He's here to help us commemorate a very special occasion. And what is that?
I believe it's Apple crossing 25 billion app downloads sometime in the near future.
Yeah, sometime today. We think we're shooting this on Friday morning. So they actually have a ticker going. You guys can go and check that out. It's very intense, and you'll end up staring at it for a very long time. But you know, supposedly, whether it's exactly accurate to 25 billion or not, we don't know. But
or whether they just wait to announce it when they announce the iPad 3 or anything else.
Whenever it's convenient for them. We don't know. But at any rate, for the person who actually downloads the 25 billionth app, that person wins a $10,000 iTunes gift card, which is kind of a
Confederate money, I believe you were calling it.
A lot of money. A lot of money to spend on iTunes. But at any rate, Tom is here to help us kind of reflect on how far we've come in the app world, and also what is trending right now, what is cool, what are the trends we're seeing, what are the specific apps that people are loving right now.
Totally. Well, I guess we could talk about the beginning. I guess the beginning was, what do we think it is? Urban Spoon was where it all started.
Yeah, that was like the big one.
That was the beginning. We had the commercials. You're shaking it. You're winning a roulette, a little bit of gambling on your food. I guess is where we all started.
That was the type of thing we thought was really cool in like 2009, I guess. Yeah, and I can remember being really excited when like the Yelp app came out and stuff, and like it was like, oh my God, we can do things on the go. And,
I mean, that's all good, because the whole thing was in the beginning was like, we have this thing in our hands. Suddenly we want to be able to do stuff that we can only do with this. Like, what do we take power of that we couldn't do when we were tied to our desk? So now we want to find stuff nearby. I want to know what my friends are doing right around me. I've got this thing in my pocket, it's got a lot of power, and I want apps that take care of that. And I think now we're starting to notice that things are going back towards just niche, solving small problems for individuals and people that might have the same kind of things going on. We're seeing a glut of different types of news readers, better ways to get your news in a more comfortable way. It all started with like Flipboard.
Flipboard, I was going to say that was a big one that everyone kind of got really stoked about, and we're seeing some kind of copycats of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to call them copycats. They do different things. Some of the things they do a little better, but we have News.me or NewsMe, which is just takes a real-time feed of your iPhone friends and your Facebook friends and your Twitter, and just turns that into a news stream for you. And then we have Readability, which looks at just like every single website and makes it really easy to read, because we know it's really hard to read on the internet. So they take that and they format it into a really comfortable way to read stuff. So you see that kind of thing coming out right now, which is cool.
So another huge game changer was, of course, Angry Birds, and that came out, what, like 2 years ago?
I think that was maybe even longer at this point. Ubiquitous in my life.
What do you think that is kind of, I mean, has that started sort of a new crop of?
Well, there's all kinds of, it's definitely not, I don't know, there's a lot of Angry Birds clones that came out. In fact, Angry Birds was a clone of a game called Catapult, which was the exact same game, basically. A lot of people don't know it because they are millions and millions of dollars less wealthy than the Rovio guys. But it definitely was out there, and you started to see another group of games that came out, which I call the I only need a finger to play, the one-finger games. And a big game like that was Tiny Wings, where it was a little bird and he was going and trying to jump from mountain to mountain. And basically they're just side-scrolling games with a bunch of hills, and you got some sort of an object and you just got to keep riding the hills as best as you possibly can by hitting a finger and letting it go. And since then we've seen, just in the last month, we've seen Ski on Neon, which is a skier on a belts of neon mountains trying to do stuff. And they've added technical skills and a bunch of things that weren't in the original versions. And oh, you said you had seen one.
Hot Donuts.
Hot
Donuts.
Hot Donut.
I like the name. It makes me think of donuts, and
Hot Donut is.
How could you not like that?
It's awesome. It's a little round glazed donut man with a flying cape. And they've taken the same sort of thing, except for they've added mountains on the top too. So sometimes you're going like this, and sometimes you're going like this. That didn't look any different, but it is. It's like this versus this.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of things that remind me of donuts, the Simpsons game has been a big one.
Totally.
This past month. What's that about?
This past week in particular. It's getting surprisingly low reviews, but I think it's pushing hard on the fact that people still love The Simpsons. Yeah,
so the nostalgia factor is still huge there, which is really cool to see after all these years. We're going to take a look at a couple more kind of weird apps when we get back, but first let's thank our sponsor. So we all love our smartphones, but let's face it, most of us hate our carriers. It's true. They tend to be huge, impersonal, and you always end up feeling like you're getting ripped off and overpaying for your plans. Well, if that's the case, check out Ting. Ting is an alternative service provider that was started by some guys up in Canada who basically bought a bunch of Sprint Spectrum and then rebuilt the service the way they would have wanted it. A lot of us get frustrated with our plans because, like me, for example, I don't use up a lot of minutes, but I use up a lot of texts, and at the end of the month, I feel like I've wasted a lot of money here and there. This is not the case with Ting. If you don't use your minutes, for example, you actually get credit at the end of the month, and if you do go over, they automatically bump you up to the next plan. And if you go on their website right now, they have a calculator that'll show you how much you can save with this service. It's really cool. They bill you separately for text, minutes, and data, and it's really clean, straightforward, and most of all, honest. Now, to start using the service, you do have to buy one of their phones through them, but they're based off Sprint, like we said, so they have 4G and all the coolest Android devices. If you go to ting.com/appjudgment, you can get $50 off any device. Get a phone and start using their service, so go check it out. So it's always really interesting to look at what's trending in the app judgment community on Crosswalk, because sometimes it's like, why? Like, what is this? Like, there's a couple weird ones.
Well, what we're finding is you guys are kind of weird, but that's okay. Everyone's got their own thing. One of the apps we saw trending just this morning was called Black Text, which lets you send your text messages through this app. You can do group, you can do all different kinds of stuff, but they show up as black unless you have a secret pin or a phrase that you only share with your friends and family, or that girl you're cheating on your girl with. So
yeah, see, it could come in really handy. I mean, think about it. Think about it.
You might need that app, and that's what it's called. It's called Black Text because it makes the text black. Another one that we saw trending a little earlier in the month, it was called SimSimi, which it also not really well reviewed, but really gimmicky and fun for about 7 minutes. That everyone should check it out for 7 whole good minutes.
It's kind of like an incredibly, unbelievably crappy version of Siri.
Right.
It's like an AI thing, but
it's like if your like really fratty cousin was able to write everything that Siri responded, and everything ends in like, dude, bro, it's awesome that you're going to these things. And you can ask it all kinds of questions. You can say, you know, do you really like hanging out on the park alone? And it'll say things like, yeah, that's great if you're special. And like, you don't know what that means. It's a total non sequitur, but it's fun for seven minutes.
Yeah, the reviews are like really terrible, but that kind of just makes me want to download it more, actually. Anyway, thanks, Tom, for joining us today to talk about some of the cool apps lately, and of course, check out Crosswalk. Yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the usual places, and we'll see you next week.